The crystalline tears falling from 6 violet eyes shouldn't have been possible. Mira Chen had read every xenobiology report available to human researchers, and nowhere did it mention that the car Theta could cry. Yet here was proof, streaming down the small being's iridescent face as it huddled in the corner of the abandoned mining station's medical bay. Mira approached slowly, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The child, if that was the right word for a being in its 3rd metamorphic stage, shrank deeper into the shadows. Its translucent wings, which should have been spreading proudly by now, hung limp and gray against its back. "Hey there," Mira said softly, settling cross-legged on the floor a respectful distance away. "I'm not going to hurt you." The Cartheta child's primary eyes focused on her, while its secondary pairs continued scanning for threats. When it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but cracked with despair. "You cannot help. No one can help. My cycle is broken." Mira had arrived at mining station Theta 7 just 6 hours ago, responding to an automated distress beacon. She'd expected to find equipment failure, maybe some trapped miners. Instead, she'd found empty corridors, powered-down systems, and eventually, this child. "What happened to everyone else?" she asked, keeping her voice gentle. "They evacuated when the pirates came through," the child whispered. "I hid. I had to hide because I am shame." "You're not shame," Mira said firmly. "You're a child who needs help." "What's your name?" The being's wings fluttered weakly. "I am called Zilara, but I will have no adult name. I will never complete the final transformation. I am broken." Mira's engineering mind immediately wanted to understand the problem. The Car Theta were known throughout the galaxy for their remarkable life cycle, 4 distinct metamorphic stages, each more beautiful than the last. Their final adult form was said to be breathtaking, with wings that could manipulate light itself. "Can you tell me what's wrong with your cycle?" Mira asked. "I'm an engineer. I fix things for a living." Zilara's 6 eyes widened in something that might have been bitter amusement. "You fix machines. I am not a machine. Our greatest healers tried to repair what was damaged. They said the neural pathways that control metamorphosis were severed when I was injured. They said I would be stuck between stages forever, neither child nor adult. A living ghost." Mira scooted slightly closer. The child didn't retreat this time. "How were you injured?" "Pirates," Zilara whispered. 3 months ago, they raided our colony ship. My parent shielded me from their weapons. The energy discharge damaged my metamorphic centers. Parent died completing their final duty, and I lived as this broken thing." The sorrow in the child's voice made Mira's chest tight. She'd seen plenty of tragedy in her years traveling the space lanes as a freelance engineer, but something about this small being's despair touched her deeply. "The healers tried everything," Zilara continued. "Bioreconstruction, neural bridging, even synthetic metamorphic triggers. Nothing worked. They said I should accept my fate, learn to live between forms, but how can I live knowing I'll never fly properly? Never see the universe as adults of my kind see it? Never join the harmony?" The harmony, Mira had heard of it. The collective consciousness that adult Cartheta could access, a joining of minds that was said to be both their greatest achievement and deepest joy. "Show me," Mira said suddenly. "Show me where you were injured." Zilara tilted its head, a gesture eerily similar to human confusion. "Why? You cannot—" "I've been fixing things since I was younger than you appear to be," Mira interrupted gently. "Machines, yes, but also biotech, cyberneural interfaces, and things that blur the line between organic and synthetic. Your healers see you as a purely biological system. I see patterns, connections, possibilities. Will you let me try?" For a long moment, Zilara was still. Then slowly, The child turned and lowered one wing. Along its back, Mira could see a web of scar tissue, faintly glowing with residual energy damage. The scars formed a pattern that made her breath catch. She'd seen this before. Not on a living being, but in damaged crystal matrices, in fractured hollow cores, in systems where energy flow had been violently interrupted. "Zilara," she said carefully, "I need to scan this with my equipment. It won't hurt, I promise." The child nodded, and Mira retrieved her engineering scanner from her belt. As the device hummed to life, painting laser grids across the scarred tissue, data flowed across her retinal display. What she saw made her sit back on her heels. "Your healers were thinking about this wrong," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "They tried to repair the biological pathways, but they didn't consider the energy patterns. Your metamorphic system isn't just biological, it's bioenergetic. The transformation requires specific energy frequencies flowing in precise patterns." "But the pathways are destroyed," Zilara said hopelessly. "The original pathways, yes," Mira agreed. "But what if we could create new ones? Not biological channels, but energetic ones. I've done similar work with crystalline matrices. The principles might translate." She pulled up holographic displays from her scanner, showing the energy patterns she'd detected. "Look here, your body is still generating the metamorphic energy. It's just stuck. Swirling without direction, like water behind a broken dam." Zilara's wings lifted slightly, the first sign of hope she'd seen from the child. "You think you can create new channels?" "I'll need to study your species biology more thoroughly," Mira admitted. "And I'll need some specialized equipment. But yes, I think it's possible. The question is whether you trust a human to try something your own healers couldn't do." "My own healers gave up," Zilara said quietly. "They told me to accept being broken. You—" The child paused, seeming to struggle for words. "You look at me and see possibilities. That is more than anyone has given me in 3 months." Mira smiled. "Then let's get to work. First, I need you to tell me everything about how the metamorphosis is supposed to work. Every detail, even things that might seem obvious to you. And then, we're going to need to raid this station's fabrication bay for supplies." Over the next several hours, Mira immersed herself in learning. Zilara proved to be an eager teacher, explaining the intricate process of Karatheta transformation with a depth of knowledge that surprised Mira until she remembered that their species prepared for each change through intensive study. "The energy begins here," Zilara explained, pointing to a spot just below where her wings connected to her back. "It spirals outward in precise patterns, triggering cellular changes in sequence. But mine—" The child's voice dropped. "Mine just churns endlessly, going nowhere." Mira nodded, her fingers flying across her tablet as she sketched designs. "What if we think of it like a river that's lost its banks? We can't rebuild the original riverbed, but we can create new channels to guide the flow." She showed Zilara her preliminary sketches, a network of microfilaments that could be woven through the scar tissue, creating artificial pathways for the metamorphic energy. These would be made from a biocompatible crystal matrix. They'd conduct the energy while gradually encouraging your body to grow new biological channels around them. "Like scaffolding?" Zilara asked, her quick understanding reminding Mira that she was dealing with a highly intelligent species. "Exactly like scaffolding," Mira confirmed. "Temporary support while your body rebuilds. The crystal would eventually be absorbed as your natural pathways regenerate." They worked through the station's night cycle, Mira teaching Zilara about human engineering principles while learning more about Karatheta biology than any human had likely known before. The child's spirits gradually lifted as they collaborated, and Mira caught glimpses of what Zilara might have been like before the injury. Curious, brilliant, eager to understand how things worked. "You're different from the other humans I've met." Zilara said as Mira carefully fabricated the first batch of crystal filaments. How so? Mira asked, not looking up from her delicate work. The others always seemed careful around us, like they were following diplomatic protocols. You treat me like I'm just a person who needs help. Mira smiled. That's because you are. Doesn't matter if you have 6 eyes or 2 wings or arms. You're a child who's been hurt and told there's no hope. Where I come from, we don't accept impossible as an answer. She held up a strand of crystal no thicker than a human hair, watching it catch and refract the light. This is going to be delicate work. It might take several sessions, and I can't guarantee it will trigger the full transformation immediately. Your body will need time to accept the new pathways. But there's hope? Zilara asked, and the naked vulnerability in her voice nearly broke Mira's heart. There's always hope, Mira said firmly. That's what humans are good at, finding hope where others see none. Now let me show you what we're going to do. As she began explaining the procedure, Mira thought about the report she'd eventually have to file. Human engineers creating solutions for problems that stumped even advanced alien civilizations. It would cause a stir. But looking at Zilara's eager attention, the way hope had rekindled in those violet eyes, she knew the politics didn't matter. What mattered was a child who'd been told they were broken beyond repair, and a human who refused to accept that answer. What mattered was the possibility of healing, of transformation, of futures restored. The fabricator hummed as it created more crystal filaments, and Mira began to plan. This would be the most delicate work she'd ever attempted, merging human engineering with alien biology in ways no textbook had ever covered. But that was what humans did, wasn't it? They looked at the impossible and found a way. They saw suffering and refused to walk away. They took their curious mix of stubborn determination and creative problem-solving and applied it to whatever challenge the universe threw at them. Ready to begin? She asked Zilara. The child straightened, wings lifting with newfound determination. Ready. Mira smiled and picked up her tools. Time to do what humans did best, make the impossible possible. The medical bay's sterile lights cast sharp shadows as Mira prepared her workspace. She'd transformed the abandoned facility into something between an engineering lab and an operating theater. Crystalline filaments lay organized in precise rows, each one calibrated to conduct specific energy frequencies. Her hands were steady, but her mind raced with calculations and possibilities. Zilara lay on a specially modified medical platform, her damaged wing spread wide. The child's breathing was controlled, but Mira could see the tension in every line of her iridescent form. I need you to understand something before we begin, Mira said, pulling on specialized gloves that would let her handle the energy-conductive crystals. This is experimental. I've run every simulation I can think of, but your biology is unique. If at any point you feel wrong, not just uncomfortable, but truly wrong, you tell me immediately. I understand, Zilara whispered. But Mira, what if it doesn't work? Mira paused in her preparations and met all 6 of the child's eyes. Then we try something else. And if that doesn't work, we try again. That's what humans do. We iterate, we adapt, we persist, we don't give up. She activated her surgical display, and holographic representations of Zilara's energy patterns appeared in the air above them. The swirling, trapped metamorphic energy showed as brilliant gold spirals, churning endlessly without direction. First, I'm going to map the exact edges of the damaged areas, Mira explained, running a specialized scanner over the scar tissue. This might tingle. Zilara's wings twitched as the scanner worked, painting detailed images of the internal damage. Mira frowned at what she saw. The injury was more extensive than she'd initially realized. The energy weapon hadn't just severed pathways. It had created what looked like energetic scar tissue, areas where the biofield was tangled and knotted. Your parent must have been incredibly strong, Mira said softly. The amount of energy they absorbed to protect you? It's remarkable you survived at all. Parent was a guardian, Zalara said, pride mixing with sorrow in her voice. They were in their final form, able to manipulate light and energy itself. They turned their own body into a shield. Mira nodded, understanding the sacrifice more deeply now. She picked up the first crystal filament with tools designed for microscopic work. I'm going to start with a single pathway. Just one small channel from your primary metamorphic center to the first wing junction. If your body accepts it, we'll continue. The work required a precision that pushed even Mira's considerable skills to their limit. She had to weave the crystal filament through tissue at the cellular level, following the ghostly traces of where the natural pathways had once been. Her augmented vision let her see at near microscopic levels, and her hands moved with the steadiness born of years working on delicate machinery in zero gravity. "Tell me about your parent," Mira said as she worked, knowing that conversation would help keep Zalara calm. "What were they like?" "Brilliant," Zalara said immediately. "They could make light dance, create holograms out of nothing but bent photons. They used to tell me stories with light shows, entire adventures playing out in the air above my sleep pod." Mira smiled, carefully guiding the filament around a particularly dense cluster of scar tissue. "What kind of stories?" "Adventures, mostly. Tales of the first car theta to achieve final form, of explorers who mapped distant galaxies. But also—" Zalara paused, and Mira felt the child's energy shift slightly. "Also stories about other species. About humans sometimes." "Oh? What kind of stories about humans?" "Parents said humans were puzzles. That you were one of the youngest spacefaring species, yet you adapted faster than anyone expected. They said humans saw the universe differently, not as fixed patterns to understand, but as possibilities to explore." The first filament was nearly in place. Mira held her breath as she made the final connection, watching on her display as she linked the crystal to Zalara's metamorphic center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like water finding a crack in stone, golden energy began to trickle along the artificial pathway. "Oh!" Zalara gasped. "I can feel it! It's moving!" "Stay still," Mira cautioned, watching the energy flow carefully. "It's just a trickle right now. We need to make sure your body doesn't reject the crystal." They waited, tense minutes passing as Mira monitored every biological marker she could track. The energy continued to flow, and gradually, Zalara's body seemed to accept the foreign pathway. The tissue around the crystal began to respond, cells starting to align in patterns that looked almost like the beginning of natural channel formation. "It's working," Mira breathed. "Your body is using the crystal as a template. It's starting to rebuild." Over the next 6 hours, Mira installed 17 more filaments, creating a delicate network of artificial pathways. It was exhausting work, requiring absolute concentration and precision. Several times she had to stop and recalibrate when Zalara's energy patterns shifted unexpectedly. "Your species' biology is remarkable," Mira said during one break, massaging her cramping hands. "The way your cells respond to energy patterns, it's almost like they have memory." "We are shaped by light from birth," Zalara explained, her voice stronger now than it had been since Mira found her. "Each stage of growth is triggered by specific wavelengths, specific patterns. That's why the healers thought I was beyond help. Without the natural pathways, my cells couldn't receive the transformation signals. But they didn't consider that we could create new roads for those signals to travel," Mira said, already preparing the next set of filaments. "Sometimes the indirect path is the only way forward." As she worked, Mira became aware of changes in Zalara's appearance. The gray, lifeless quality of her wings was beginning to fade, replaced by hints of the iridescent shimmer that should have been there. The child's energy patterns were stabilizing, finding new rhythms. But then, as Mira was installing the 23rd filament, something went wrong. The energy flow suddenly spiked, surging through the artificial pathways at dangerous levels. Zalara cried out, her body convulsing as uncontrolled metamorphic energy coursed through the crystal network. "Hold on," Mira said, her hands flying over her controls. The displays showed energy levels far beyond what she'd calculated for. The crystals were conducting too well, creating a feedback loop that threatened to overload Zalara's system. She had seconds to act. Too much energy, and Zalara's cells would burn out, possibly killing her. But cutting the flow entirely might damage the progress they'd made. Mira made her choice. She grabbed a harmonic modulator from her kit and pressed it against the primary crystal junction. The device was meant for tuning engine harmonics, but energy was energy. She adjusted the frequency, using her engineer's instinct to find the resonance that would calm the surge. The feedback fought her for long, terrifying seconds. Then, gradually, the energy began to stabilize. The dangerous spikes smoothed into steady waves, and Zalara's convulsions stopped. "I'm sorry," Mira said, checking the child's vital signs. "I didn't account for the crystals creating resonance with each other. As the network grows, they're amplifying the energy flow." "It hurt," Zalara admitted, "but not like before. Before, the energy was trapped, crushing in on itself. This was like trying to contain a flood. Too much, but moving the right direction." Mira recalibrated her approach, adjusting each remaining filament to account for the resonance effect. The work went slower now, but more smoothly. She found herself explaining each step to Zalara, teaching the child about harmonics and frequency modulation as she worked. "You would make a good engineer," Mira said, as Zalara correctly predicted how the next filament would affect the overall energy flow. "My caste was to be harmonizers," Zalara said. "We tune the great crystal cities, maintain the frequency fields that keep our structures standing. Perhaps these skills transfer." "Everything transfers if you look at it right," Mira assured her. "Engineering isn't about knowing one system, it's about understanding how systems work in general. Patterns repeat across the universe." By the time she'd installed the 40th filament, the change in Zalara was remarkable. The child's wings had regained much of their natural luminescence, and faint patterns of light played beneath the skin. More importantly, Mira's scans showed new biological growth, actual neural pathways beginning to form along the crystal templates. "Your body is learning," Mira explained, showing Zalara the scans. "It's using the artificial pathways as guides to rebuild the natural ones. In a few weeks, maybe less, you might not need the crystals at all." "And then?" Zalara asked, hope and fear warring in her voice. "Will I transform?" "I don't know," Mira admitted. "We've restored the pathways, but triggering the actual metamorphosis, that might require something more. What normally initiates the final transformation?" "The calling," Zalara said. "When a Cartheta is ready, they hear the harmony, the joined consciousness of all adults. They reach out, and the reaching itself triggers the change. But I've never heard even an echo." Mira considered this. The harmony sounded like some kind of quantum consciousness field, something her instruments couldn't measure directly. But if it operated on specific frequencies... "Let me try something," she said, pulling up new displays. "Can you describe what the harmony is supposed to feel like? Not sound like, but feel like?" Zalara closed 4 of her 6 eyes, concentrating. "Like standing in a vast space filled with light. Like every color at once, but also none. Like voices that aren't voices, but pure understanding." Mira nodded, her fingers dancing across controls. She was thinking of quantum field harmonics, of the way certain frequencies could create standing waves that interfaced with consciousness itself. It was theoretical, borderline impossible, but then again, so was everything else they'd done today. "I'm going to try to simulate the frequency signature of your harmony," she explained. "Not the consciousness itself, I can't create that, But maybe if I can generate the right resonance pattern, it might help your body recognize what it's supposed to do. She worked for another hour, fine-tuning frequencies based on everything Zilara had told her about the harmony, cross-referencing with the energy patterns she'd observed in the child's metamorphic centers. Finally, she had something, a complex waveform that seemed to resonate with the crystal network in intriguing ways. "Ready?" she asked. Zilara nodded, all 6 eyes wide with anticipation and fear. Mira activated the harmonic generator. The frequency was beyond normal hearing, but she could feel it, a subtle vibration that seemed to touch something deeper than the physical. Through her displays, she watched as Zilara's energy patterns responded, the golden flows through the crystal networks taking on new complexity. Zilara gasped. "I can almost... There's something..." The child's wings began to glow more brightly, patterns of light racing along the restored pathways. For a moment, Mira thought they'd done it, that the transformation would begin. Then the glow faded, and Zilara slumped back, exhausted. "I could feel it," the child whispered, "like standing at a door I couldn't quite open. But it's there, Mira. For the first time in 3 months, I could feel the possibility." Mira squeezed Zilara's hand, carefully, aware of her greater human strength. "That's enough for today. Your body needs time to integrate the new pathways, but this is incredible progress." "Will you stay?" Zilara asked, exhaustion making her voice small. "The station is so empty, and I haven't had hope in so long. I'm afraid if I sleep, I'll wake to find this was all a dream." "I'll stay," Mira promised, already mentally reorganizing her schedule. Her other contracts could wait. This was more important. Not just the technical challenge, but the child who'd been abandoned by everyone who should have helped her. "We'll keep working on this together. Every day will get you closer to that door." As Zilara drifted into exhausted sleep, Mira sat back and reviewed the data from their session. What they'd accomplished should have been impossible. She'd created a functional interface between human engineering and alien biology, built bridges where none should have existed. But more than that, she'd given a child hope. Looking at Zilara's sleeping form, wings faintly glowing with restored energy flows, Mira felt a fierce protectiveness rise in her chest. The universe had told this child she was broken beyond repair. Her own people had given up. But Mira was human, and humans didn't give up on children who needed help. She pulled up her engineering interface and began planning the next session. There was still so much work to do, so many pathways to restore. And then there was the challenge of the harmony itself. How did you help someone reach a consciousness field their body couldn't fully perceive? Well, she'd figure it out. That's what engineers did. That's what humans did. They found a way. 3 weeks had passed since Mira first found Zilara crying in the abandoned station. 3 weeks of daily sessions, careful adjustments, and incremental progress. The medical bay had become their shared world, filled with the soft hum of equipment and the growing collection of Zilara's light sculptures, small practice pieces the child created as her control over her metamorphic energy improved. Mira stood before her latest creation, a hybrid device that looked like the unlikely offspring of a human quantum scanner and Car Theta meditation crystals. She'd been working on it during the hours when Zilara slept, driven by an idea that wouldn't let her rest. "You built this for me?" Zilara asked, examining the device with all 6 eyes. The child had grown stronger over the weeks, her wings now shimmering with health, the crystal pathways fully integrated with regenerating biological channels. "For us," Mira corrected, "you've made incredible progress. Your energy flows are at 90% of normal capacity. The pathways are stable. By every measure I can take, you're ready for metamorphosis. But I still can't reach the harmony," Zilara finished. her voice carrying the weight of that repeated disappointment. Every day they'd tried. Every day Zalara could feel it, just out of reach, like trying to grasp sunlight. "I've been thinking about that," Mira said, activating the device. Multiple holographic displays sprang to life, showing waveform analyses she'd been conducting. "The harmony operates on quantum frequencies that Car Theta adults can naturally perceive. But what if the reason you can't reach it isn't because you're broken, but because you're approaching it wrong?" Zalara tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "Your injury forced your body to rebuild its pathways in a new configuration. They work, we've proven that, but they're different from the standard Car Theta pattern. What if that difference means you need a different frequency key to unlock the harmony?" Mira pulled up comparison charts. "Look at this. I've been analyzing the subtle differences between your rebuilt pathways and the standard Car Theta neural maps. The variance is tiny, less than 3%. But in quantum resonance, tiny differences can mean completely different harmonic signatures. So I'm incompatible?" Zalara's wings drooped slightly. "No," Mira said firmly. "Just unique. And uniqueness isn't brokenness. It's adaptation. Your body found a new way to channel metamorphic energy. Maybe it can find a new way to reach the harmony too." She gestured to the hybrid device. "This is a harmonic translator. It can detect quantum consciousness frequencies and shift them, like adjusting the pitch of a song so a different voice can sing it. If we can find your unique frequency signature, we might be able to create a bridge between you and the harmony." Zalara studied the device with growing excitement. "This is beyond what either of our species has created before. How did you—" "By not thinking like a human or a Car Theta," Mira interrupted with a smile. "By thinking like someone trying to solve a problem. I combined human quantum processing with Car Theta consciousness resonance theory. Added a bit of improvisation with some Altarian phase crystals I found in the station stores. Engineering is just creative problem-solving with physics." They spent the morning calibrating the device, with Zalara helping to fine-tune the Car Theta components, while Mira handled the human tech integration. It was a perfect representation of their partnership over these weeks, two different perspectives creating something neither could have built alone. "Ready to try?" Mira asked when the calibrations were complete. Zalara settled into the center of the harmonic field generated by the device. "What should I expect?" "I honestly don't know," Mira admitted. "We're in uncharted territory. But I'll be monitoring everything. If anything feels wrong—" "I trust you," Zalara interrupted. "You've already given me more than anyone else could. Whatever happens, I trust you." Mira activated the translator. And immediately the air in the medical bay seemed to shift. The device projected quantum fields that were invisible to human eyes, but through her instruments, Mira could see them. Rippling waves of probability and consciousness, searching for resonance. At first, nothing happened. Then Zalara gasped, all 6 eyes widening. There's something different, like hearing a familiar song in a new key." The child's wings began to glow, but not with the simple light of before. This was deeper, more complex, patterns within patterns, fractals of luminescence that seemed to extend beyond the physical. "Your quantum signature is shifting," Mira reported, watching her displays with fascination. "You're finding your unique frequency." The glow intensified, and suddenly the medical bay filled with harmonics that Mira could feel in her bones. It was like standing inside a symphony where every note was perfect, where mathematics became music, became meaning. "I can hear them," Zalara breathed, tears of joy streaming from all 6 eyes. "The harmony. But it's different. Not the single voice I expected, but countless variations, like every possible way of being Car Theta all at once." The transformation began. It wasn't like anything in the texts Mira had studied. Instead of the standard progression, Zalara's change was a dance of possibilities. Her wings expanded, contracted, shifted through configurations that shouldn't have existed. Colors played across her form that had no names in any language, hues that existed in the spaces between conventional light. Mira watched in awe as her instruments tried and failed to categorize what was happening. This wasn't just metamorphosis, it was evolution in real time. Zalara's unique pathways creating a new variation on an ancient theme. The process lasted hours, though time seemed to flow strangely in the presence of such profound change. Mira never moved from her monitoring station, ready to intervene if needed, but the transformation proceeded with its own perfect logic. When it finally ended, the being who stood before her was recognizably Zalara, but transformed beyond imagining. Where adult Cartheta had wings that could manipulate light, Zalara's wings seemed to be made of light itself, constantly shifting, adapting, existing in multiple states simultaneously. "How do you feel?" Mira asked, her voice barely a whisper. Zalara turned, flowed might be a better word, to face her. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made the air shimmer. "I feel whole, but different. I can touch the harmony, but I'm not bound by it. I can hear the traditional songs, but I can also sing new ones." She extended a wing, and Mira watched in fascination as it shifted through different states. Solid, energy, something between the two. The healers were wrong. I wasn't broken. I was becoming something new. "Evolution through adversity," Mira said, a smile spreading across her face. "Your injury didn't destroy your future. It created a different one." Zalara moved closer, and Mira felt warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. "You did this. When everyone else saw damage, you saw possibility. When they said accept limitations, you said transcend them. Is this what it means to be human?" Mira thought about that for a moment. "Maybe. We're a young species, still figuring ourselves out. But if there's one thing we're good at, it's looking at the universe's rules and saying, okay, but what if we try it this way instead?" "I want to learn more," Zalara said, her form rippling with excitement. "About human engineering, about creative problem solving, about seeing possibilities where others see walls. Will you teach me?" "I think we'll be teaching each other," Mira replied. "You've just become something entirely new, the first of your kind to achieve metamorphosis through alternative pathways. The scientific community is going to lose their minds, both human and Cartheta." Zalara's expression shifted to something that might have been mischievous. "They'll say it's impossible." "Good thing we didn't know that when we started," Mira laughed. Over the following days, they documented everything. Mira's careful notes combined with Zalara's unique perspective created a comprehensive record of their achievement. But more than the scientific value, it was a testament to what could happen when compassion met determination, when someone refused to accept broken as a final verdict. Other Cartheta began arriving at the station, drawn by news of the impossible transformation. They came expecting to find some miraculous healing technology. Instead, they found a human engineer and a transformed child working together, bridging species and solving problems through sheer collaborative ingenuity. "How many others are there like me?" Zalara asked one evening as they watched the stars through the station's observation deck. Her form cast patterns of light that danced across the walls, a constant, beautiful reminder of her unique nature. "Injured children told they'll never transform?" "I don't know," Mira admitted. "But we could find out. What we've learned here, what we've built, it doesn't have to end with you." Zalara turned to her, and in the shifting patterns of her transformed state, Mira could see determination that matched her own. "Then we continue. We find them. We show them that broken doesn't mean hopeless. A human and a Cartheta, traveling the galaxy fixing the unfixable?" Mira grinned. "I can't think of anything I'd rather do." As they began planning their next steps, Mira reflected on how this had started, with a crying child and an engineer who couldn't walk away. She'd thought she was just fixing another broken system. Instead, she'd helped birth something entirely new. But that was humanity's gift to the galaxy, wasn't it? Not superior technology or ancient wisdom, but the stubborn refusal to accept impossibility. The willingness to sit with a crying child and say, "Don't weep, little one, your cycle is broken, but I'll make it whole again." And then doing exactly that, no matter what it took. Weeks later, when they departed the station in Mira's ship, they carried with them the prototype harmonic translator and detailed notes on alternative metamorphosis. But more importantly, they carried proof that sometimes the best solutions came from seeing brokenness not as an ending, but as an opportunity for something unprecedented. Zilara had become something new, not traditionally Cartheta, but something perhaps even more beautiful. A bridge between what was and what could be, a living testament to the power of human stubbornness and alien courage combined. As the station faded behind them and the stars stretched ahead, Mira caught Zilara practicing with her new abilities. The young Cartheta was creating sculptures of light that defied conventional physics, art that existed in dimensions human eyes could barely perceive. "Thank you," Zilara said suddenly, not turning from her work, "for seeing me. Not the broken thing I thought I was, but the person I could become." "Thank you," Mira replied, "for trusting me to help, and for teaching me that sometimes the best engineering happens when you throw out the manual and write a new one." They flew on into the vast galaxy, a human and a transformed Cartheta, carrying hope to others who'd been told they were beyond repair. Because that's what humans did. They looked at the impossible and found a way. And sometimes, in finding that way, they helped create something the universe had never seen before. The stars welcomed them, infinite with possibility, and in the light of Zilara's wings, new futures danced.